have a 3-hour tours now. So we are gonna go outside, enjoy some Stockholm history. Sometimes I get too excited and I talk too much. You can tell me the truth if it gets boring. Okay. We are mostly biking on bike lanes, but it's a Monday, so let's watch out for the Stockholmers. They're gonna be cycling. They want to speed up. What I ask you to do is to keep yourself to the right hand side of the bike lane. So we are pedaling, keep to the right side, people are going to overtake us through our left. If you leave space for them, they are not going to scream at you with bad Swedish words. I'll be pointing to the right and to the left before I turn, and I'm gonna raise my hand to stop. So you know I'm gonna stop here to bore you with history. I'm gonna do this to slow down. If there's a baby or an elderly person on the way, let's be careful, let's slow down. Drivers here are overall very gentle, but just keep an eye for taxi drivers. Taxi drivers are a little bit harsh. But they usually make enough room for us, keep to the right side, they're gonna be careful. In the old town, we are gonna step off our bikes and walk it a little bit for around 40 minutes. It's a beautiful part of the city with a lot of history and architecture that I can tell you about, and it's worth stepping off the bike a little bit. And if there is a red light, we stop at the red light. If we can cross, there will be a button that you can press. So there's usually a button, and then the button turns the light green again. So if you don't press the button, it's not gonna turn green. So remember, if you're trapped on the traffic light, look for the button. Any questions so far? No questions?
Nope.
So I think we can go then. You use the bells on the bike lane if there is a pedestrian jumping in front of you. Okay. I'll be dealing with most of the pedestrians, but maybe someone just jumps in front of you. You use the bell. Let's go then.
Nice adventure.
Resuming.
Here.
Okay,
Pausing.
how's everyone bike?
Good.
Good?
Yes.
So third time is the charm. My name is Lukas. So let's hope you don't forget now. Feel free to ask as many questions as you like. Don't feel shy. I like to chat, sometimes too much. I already said that. Reinforcing. So has anybody been to Stockholm before?
No.
No? Nobody has been here? So nobody probably knows what Stockholm actually means, the name. Stock means log and holm means island. So it's the log island. When you cut down a tree, you get a log, piece of log. And there are different interpretations for why it's called the log island. Nobody knows because the Vikings were terrible at recording history. So they didn't write down why they called this place the log island. But the archaeological evidences tells us that it's probably because when they settled here, they reinforced the old islands with logs. So what they would do was similar to what they did in Venice and Amsterdam, for example. So basically they would dig holes into the lake bed and put the logs inside to reinforce the ground, and then they would landfill with debris, so sand, pebbles, wherever they had, and then the logs would be added there as pylons to hold the place. And most of the shore of the old islands is man-made like that, so it's their own lake bed. And sometimes they are renovating parts of the island and they find these old logs, and the scientists can take a piece of the log and through magic of science they know when the log was cut down. And the oldest logs that they have found date back to the 900s. So that's how long the archaeological evidence shows that people have been here. But we don't know if what was their purpose here, because there is no written documentation until the 1200s. So we have the archaeological evidences from the 900s, but we don't know between 900s and 1200s what exactly happened. We don't know. We estimate that it was probably a small farmer and fisherman village. So just a small village, but there is also some important features about the geography here that might tell us why they chose this place. So we have the lake to the west, so this is west and this is fresh water, and it's a lake that extends 120 kilometers to the countryside. That's around 80 miles in Imperial, so it goes very deep to the countryside. But right at the east side, later on we're gonna see, from here we can't see, but later on we're gonna see the body of water there. It's salt water, because that's already the Baltic Sea. So because of this Baltic Sea and lake, it's a pretty good place for trading. So basically a lot of the villages in Sweden were built around the lakes, and this lake here, since it goes very deep, there were many villages that were distribution points for minerals, especially iron and copper. So iron and copper was the big material that the Vikings were extracting back in the medieval period. So they would use the lake to bring down these minerals and to distribute it in the Baltic Sea, either to the rest of the coast of Sweden or to other countries. So it was the perfect place for trading, and that's probably why they settled here. So they dug canals to connect the lake to the Baltic Sea. And we at the end of the tour are gonna see one of these canals. There are three. There is one at the north part of the old town, that's the one that we're gonna see. There is a lock at the south part of the old town that's loosened. So a lock is to allow for the ships to basically change the elevation of the water. And there is another canal that is at the south of that part there. So that whole region there, it's called Södermalm. It's the South Island, it's the largest island in the archipelago of Stockholm, and there's a canal that was built at the other side. So these are three canals that are not in use anymore nowadays, but back in the medieval time, it's where they were charging fees on the traders, on the merchants. So it started as a small village right in the middle, and then over the centuries it increased in size. We have the north part, Norrmalm, Södermalm in the south. The north part is the financial district of Stockholm. There are a lot of banks and offices there. A lot of people go there for work. And you can see it's a more modern looking part of Stockholm. There's a lot of buildings that were modernized during the 50s to 70s. So in between this period, they were destroying the 1700s facades to put these modern facades to increase the number of floors in the buildings. It was an economic boom in Sweden. So the businessman wanted more room for offices. But then there was a referendum, and they made it mandatory that you cannot develop anymore like this. So the old buildings must be preserved. That's why there are so many so well preserved buildings in Stockholm. Meanwhile, those ones were unfortunately lost to the modernization. But of course, this creates a new type of history, right?
What's up with that?
That tower there?
Well, no, the one next to it looks like it's gonna fall over.
That's just a hotel.
Okay, but it's kind of crooked.
Yeah. So modern architecture. I mean, they were trying to show off the power of new technology and money, basically. So they were even planning on building skyscrapers in the old town. So destroying the medieval buildings to replace it with skyscrapers. But the black roofed building right there, do you see the black roof there? That's the central station. So maybe you've taken the train station or the train just to come from the airport, for example, that's where it stops. Then, sorry?
How far is the train to the airport?
How far?
Yeah, time-wise?
Time-wise is around 40 minutes to an hour. But there is the express that takes 15 minutes. Because there is the commute train, so it stops in many stations, and there is the express train. The express train, it takes directly from the airport to Stockholm and Stockholm to airport in 15 minutes. So it's a quick train. But it usually takes around 1 hour. That's for the commuting. We have to the northwest Kungsholmen, which is more of a residential neighborhood, this whole island here, but it houses an important landmark here. This is the City Hall of Stockholm. So this is where they administrate Stockholm, but they also host the Nobel Prize banquet there. So they eat after receiving the prizes in the City Hall. And in Saturdays it works as a conveyor belt for weddings. So it's very funny, if you're here on a Saturday, you see all of these brides and grooms all over Stockholm, because they go inside, they sign their papers, they say their vows, and it's a 5-minute wedding, so it's very quick. So it's very funny because they form lines of brides and grooms, they go inside. It's a beautiful building. I think it's a romantic civil wedding. It's a civil wedding. It's not religious at all. But Holland is always island basically. So Stockholm, Kungsholm, Riddarholm. The old town there is called Gamla Stan, but the island is called Stansholm, which means the city is silent. So this is where they settled in the 1200s. So why in the 1200s? Because there was a statesman called the Duke Birger Jarl, that owned a lot of iron mines and copper mines, and he came to Stockholm for business. And he was very influential, so much so that he put his son on the throne. So the King of Sweden was the son of Birger Jarl. So that statue there is of the Duke Birger. And the Duke Birger decided that this would be perfect to protect his son against the enemies of the crown. So he convinced his son on a letter to move to Stockholm, and they started to develop Stockholm in the 1200s, and they consider him the founder of Sweden because of that. That's the first documented mention of the name Stockholm. So in between that, those 900s, remember the 900s and the 1200s, they were probably just some farmers and fishermen living in this place, sparse and not actually centralized. It was just where all of the merchants would use to cross from the lake to the Baltic Sea. But he had a brilliant idea of protecting the king here, because islands are very hard to conquer. So they came from the west, from the countryside. They were Vikings, but they were already Christians. So what does a Christian build as the first main building in a new town before everything else? A church. So behind me we have the first church to be found in Stockholm. It was originally a small wooden monastery. So the church that we are looking at is not the original one, but it's still the same name. So Riddarholmen Kyrka, the Church of Riddarholmen. And it's mostly from the 16 and 1700s, with parts of it from the 1800s. There was a fire in the 1800s, so they had to rebuild parts of it. And you can see that there are even mismatch of the brick colors because of that. So in this wing here, the colors are brighter than in the middle there. It's because it's younger. And even this part here with the scaffolding, you can see that it's stonework, it's neoclassicism. So it's much more recently built than the rest. The tower is from the 1700s, but the inner core there, it's from the 1600s. The foundations, parts of it, are from the 1300s. And they have been burying their kings here ever since 1500s. So it's the royal crypts. So if you want to learn all about the Carl Gustavs of Sweden, you come to this church. It's not all of them that were buried here, but many of them. There is a couple more churches to talk about. So we have the Storkyrkan, the big church. It's called literally big church. It's not that big, but it's called the big church. But in English, is the cathedral, basically. Cathedral of Stockholm. That's the pink one. That's from the 1300s. It started to be built in the late 1200s. It probably finished in the early 1300s. There are some documents that attest to its time and to its age, but we are not sure when it actually finished building. And over the centuries it got renovated. So most of its structure is still original. So that's the oldest building in Stockholm. Even though this was settled first, it was settled as a small wooden monastery. That's not here anymore. But that one, it still has the original building inside it. The third church there is the German church. Are you German? Or any chance? No? Okay. Where are you from?
Dutch.
Are you Dutch? Okay. So the Germans, they had this league of merchants called the Hanseatic League. Maybe you've known that.
Yes.
But they were merchants, very important merchants in the 13, 14 and 1500s, especially in the 1400s. And they had their own neighborhood in Stockholm. So they built their own church around it. And Sweden, Denmark and Norway, they formed an alliance to try to overtake the Germans in the trading. because the Germans were so strong in it that they were basically overtaking them in the Baltic Sea. So they were monopolizing the trading in the North Sea, but in the Baltic Sea they were still competing against the trio of this union. Denmark, Norway. Step off our bikes a little bit, okay? But it's worth it. There might be a lot of vans and traffic in the old town, okay? It's a Monday, so they're bringing it home.
Oh, fuck.
Here we walk. So later today, if you get lucky, it's a very interesting thing to see. But now we're gonna turn in this street here. Just don't block this door.
Okay.
Keep to the right side, don't lock the door. You can stop right there. So welcome to the old town. So you have to imagine that back in the medieval period, the town was much smaller than nowadays. So the buildings behind you did not exist. So this whole layer here was actually a wall, a wooden wall. So there was a gate there. The west gate. That alley was where the priests lived. So the whole street here is called the Prästgatan, the priest street, and the wall is surrounding the city itself. So the city basically started from this side. This side is an inner core. If you continue towards the south in this street, at some point you're gonna take a left turn, and then it's gonna go back to the north. So towards there is south, towards there is north. This means that it goes around the whole old town. So this is the peripheric street, in a sense. So it goes around the whole inner core. In the inner core you find the oldest buildings of Stockholm. So in this building is very interesting because you can see through the holes on the plaster. So they made these holes for us to see. the stonework of the 1300s. So the facades are mostly stylish in the 1600 style, but the building, the structure is still original in many cases. So 1400s. And you can see that they would basically pile up stone, right? So these are slabs of granite. It was easier to bring as slabs than as boulders. So they would cut the granite into thin slabs like this. And then they would pile it up. They would use limestone as cement. The limestone is the flexible material that allows the stone to move. And they would tie the opposite walls. So basically the opposite walls, they want to fall. And then you have beams that connect them. These are called tying rods. And the tying rods were made out of iron in the medieval time. And they would use the anchor plates. So these metal pieces poking out of the walls, they are called anchor plates. And the anchor plates would hold the building. So basically the tying rod would poke through the building, and then they would add a plate to distribute the pressure over the walls. So the walls would not fall. They would pull each other. So whenever you see a metal piece like this or like those ones, you have to imagine that there is a very long beam behind it connecting this side of the wall to the opposite side of the wall. This stone is very thick, the walls. They are very thick like this. It's for the winter, right? It gets very cold here. It's minus 20 degrees Celsius, minus 14 Fahrenheit, I think that's it, something like that. So it gets very cold here. And they have it, they need, for example, double glazing. So two glass here to isolate. So you can see the effect of the importance of the anchor plates and the tying rods on the wall here. So you see that the wall is slightly rounded. You notice that down here? This is because they didn't connect this wall to the opposite wall right here. So it deformed over the centuries. But at the top of the building you see 5 anchor plates, and that one is much more flat than down here. Do you notice this difference? Yeah. This is not exclusive to Stockholm, okay? This is a technology that you see all over Northern Europe. But I think it's interesting because you see this throughout the city, and it's a very typical characteristic of Stockholm. And the anchor plates tell you when the building was built. So many of the anchor plates are from mostly the late 1500s and 1600s. The 1500 style is that single bar there. They were Protestant, they are Protestant, but in the 1500s that's when they converted to Protestant, to Lutheran. And you need to be modest as a Lutheran. They simplified the styling, but in the 1600s they wanted they forgot they were Lutherans, so they started to use those ones. You see that those ones that are very ornamented, those are from the 1600s. It's very rare to use for buildings to be built out of bricks. Okay, so when it's a brick building with a very lavish-looking anchor plate, that was a rich person that lived there. But this style here is estimated to be from the medieval time. So this is one of the oldest buildings in Stockholm. This is from the 1300s. So the plaster, of course, is they add the plaster. They correct it whenever there's cracks forming. They soon are gonna come and replace the plaster. They're gonna fix the walls. So it's a World Heritage Site, which means that people that live here, they have to maintain it as original as possible. So these old structures holding the buildings, they have to be supported with modern techniques. They cannot be replaced. They need to be supported.
What are the black things?
So these were added in the 19th century to exactly hold the wall. So the wall is deformed, right? This meant that if they didn't do anything, this wall at some point would crack and fall. So they added these ones. These are bracers, so they are basically holding a steel pillar inside. And when you twist the bolt, do you see the bolt there? If you twist it, you bring the wall slightly inwards. It's very little. You cannot do that much because again, the wall can crack if you do too much. So these were added later.
Excuse me. Like, do one families live here?
Yes, so I would say that
It's quite big.
Each floor has probably multiple apartments.
Oh,
so
I see.
It's back in the day, probably one whole family lived there. So family with many members. But nowadays, I mean, each floor has probably one or two apartments.
I see.
Mostly they are residential, but there are also some offices in this place. So the other day I was looking at whenever you see an intercom, sometimes there is the name of the person that lives there. You see this intercom here? And the other day I found Burger King's house. You know? The king of the burgers? It was just their office, basically. And it was in the old town.
So are these owned or rented?
So they are mostly owned, with some of them being rented.
Oh, I see.
When it's rented, it's owned by a housing company. So the housing company rents it as a first-hand contract. When it's a first-hand contract, you cannot be kicked out of the place. But the housing company is the one responsible for the maintenance if you're a renter. But that's very rare. So most of the most of the apartments here are owned by someone.
So they own their individual unit? Like a condo?
Mm-hmm. I'm not that familiar with the terminology, but I guess condo is like
well, condo
one.
you would own the
It's
individual versus own the full building.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Oh, so basically you can buy a unit there,
I mean,
or just rent
can
it?
you? It's gonna be very, very expensive.
I see.
So I think from what I remember, per square meter, so like this,
Okay.
it's around 10,000 euros per square meter. So it's not the most expensive neighborhood, but it is very expensive. So it's not for everyone. Like these apartments here, they cost like, or these condos, they are gonna cost up to the millions of euros. They're not gonna be cheap. To rent it out also not cheap. So this is a prestigious place. I wouldn't live here. There's too many tourists and a lot of noise here, so it's not that comfortable. A lot of people complain that they choose to live here. So, but I wouldn't live here. It's a beautiful place to visit.
How many square meters for like one unit?
So the apartments are gonna be small. They're gonna be around
Like 30?
30 to 50. So they are not that big.
The
So
same as in Amsterdam then.
Yeah. So apartments in Europe, they are usually not big. So a big apartment in Europe is going to be 120 square meters, 200 square meters. That's going to be a very big apartment. That's so 1 square meter is around 10 square feet. So like these apartments, they are 400 square feet. The unification. I would like to take a group picture now, so if you could take your bikes and form a line, we're gonna put the beautiful buildings on the background, and you can download that picture from that QR code. You took a picture of my phone number with the QR code. Yes. From there you get my picture. So if you could take your bikes, science. So which projects to fund, but also they form the committee that votes for the Nobel Prize winners. So the museum itself is small. It's not the whole building. It's just a couple of the rooms in the building. So you're gonna be done in 30 minutes if you visit this museum. It's a very small museum. It's about the winners of the Nobel Prizes, not the Alfred Nobel himself. There's very little information about him. But do you know who Alfred Nobel was? It's important. You know? He invented dynamite. Yes, he came up with dynamite. Or I mean, he was a chemist. He came up with nitroglycerin, and glycerin is used for other things. But then he could manufacture dynamite using powder and nitroglycerin. So it's a very explosive. It's an explosive, very strong explosive. Nowadays we use it to extract minerals, right, or to open tunnels and things like that. But back then it was mostly used to kill people. It was used in war. And that meant that he became extremely rich because of the dynamite. And he exported a lot of this dynamite, and at some point he was nicknamed the Merchant of Death because of that. And he felt guilty, so he decided that all of his fortune should be given back to progress through the Nobel Prizes. So in his testament, he gave this fortune to a trust fund, and the trust fund is the one to give the prize money. That's around $1 million, 10 million crowns, so $1 million, 1 million euros. And that's how the Nobel Prizes were born. So I say out of guilt, because if it was really out of guilt, he would have stopped selling the dynamite for war, right? But it was mostly to improve his fame, because he was known as the Merchant of Death, and he was like, no, this is not something that I want to leave behind. He had no heirs, no spouse, so he decided to leave some kind of nice, something nice behind, which is the Nobel Prizes. And then the Nobel Prizes they gave a Nobel Prize to the creator of the nuclear bomb.
Is it like Oppenheimer?
Yes. And others. So it wasn't not only Oppenheimer, but many scientists together. But yeah. Any questions?
This is a different Nobel Prize, though, right?
Not that big. So like the church, they exaggerate whenever they say that something's big. Don't trust them. They're exaggerating. But this is an important part of the town, not only because it's a social spot. So here people meet up. Nowadays, of course, mostly tourists come to here. But during Christmas, they, for example, host a Christmas market here. Very cute one. It's very cold, but there is no bad weather. There's only bad clothing. Except that the darkness is the real problem. The cold is okay, but the sun sets at 3 in the afternoon here, and it rises only 9 a.m. During winter. So it's a very long period of darkness, and it can get very depressing. So some people need to also take vitamin D pills, and they add vitamin D to many of the ingredients here to compensate for the lack of it. So butter and milk, for example, if you look at the ingredients, there will be vitamin D added to it because of that. There is also a very important event that happened in the old town here in the main square. But I'm gonna summarize something very complex now, so pardon my imprecision. But basically, it was a 90-year conflict between Denmark and Sweden. And this conflict was because Denmark, Sweden and Norway, they formed this alliance, but Denmark wanted the land. It's not only that they wanted to have this alliance, but they wanted to own the country. So they invaded Sweden from the south in the 1400s, early 1400s, and then throughout the 1400s they slowly conquered Sweden. the Swedes were very, very stubborn and strong, so they were holding their ground. But then in 1520 there was a very cold winter that resulted in the lakes freezing for over 5 months, so even more than 5 months. And then the Danes were attacking and they were using the lake, the frozen lake as access. And they conquered Stockholm in 1520. So in 1520, the Danish king Christian II came to Stockholm to be crowned King of Sweden. And he threw a party for the noblemen of Stockholm because they were not happy. They wanted a Swedish king, not a Danish king. So he threw this party to improve relationship with this Swedish nobleman, and they partied from Friday to Sunday. So he brought meat, so alcohol, meat, food, bread, music, and they were partying, feasting, dancing, singing, and having a blast for these 3 days. But that was a trap. Sunday evening, he ordered the imprisonment of all of the Swedish noblemen. And they were brought here on Monday and Tuesday, and they were all beheaded. So the Swedish noblemen, over 100 of them had their heads cut off here. Some of them were even hanged from the tops of the buildings. This is known as Stockholm's bloodbath. And Christian II, the Danish king, was called Christian the Tyrant. So we are standing on bloody ground. There is a ghost tour in Stockholm, in the old town here, and they talk about many of the different types of murders that happened in the old town here, and then you learn also more in depth about the bloodbath itself. But the bloodbath was important because it sparked a rebellion. So it took the Danes 90 something years to conquer Stockholm, to conquer Sweden. But then the north of Sweden was still free. They didn't actually conquer Sweden completely. And from the north, led by Gustav, he was one of the noblemen that had his father executed in the main square. The miners and the blacksmiths from the north, they were strong men, right? The miners and blacksmiths, and they had a lot of arms, weapons. So iron and copper, they could manufacture a lot of weapons. So they came from the north, and they were furious, led by Gustav. He was a very strong strategist, and they defeated the Danes after 3 years. So the Danes took 90 years to conquer Sweden, and Sweden was freed from Danish occupation after 3 years of rebellion. So this rebellion resulted in the unification and unification of the country and liberation from Denmark. So a couple of years ago, they commemorated unification and liberation. So 500 years of that. So it happened in 1523. This boulder. So imagine a wagon speeding up in this place and then turning the corner. The wheels of the wagon would break the corners of the building. So they started to add these boulders, and you can still see the scratches made by the wheels of the wagons here. Do you see it? So whenever you see this kind of thing, now you know that it's to protect the corner. Of course, nowadays, no cars are allowed here, and no wagons also. But back then, it was an important part of maintaining the building. Well, let's go to marble. They don't have marble here. So what they would do to sculpt was use wood. So most of the sculpture is made out of wood. But look at the dragon itself. The details are made with different types of animal antlers. So do you see the wings? The wings of the dragon, they are made with moose antlers. And then the spines and horns, they are made of reindeer or other types of animals antlers. So I think the sculptist was very creative in the use of materials there. And even the armors of St. George and the horse, it's all made out of real metal. So he hired a blacksmith to make the armors for the sculpture. It's a painted sculpture, so it's a colorful sculpture, the original one. And it was built in or sculpted, manufactured in the late 1400s to commemorate one of the battles that they won against the Danes. But as we know, the Danes conquered Sweden in 1520. So the meaning for the many of the Swedes changed after that. So the meaning of this sculpture nowadays represents Gustav, the leader of the rebellion from the 1523, defeating Christian the tyrant, the Danish king that executed everyone in the main square. So St. George is Gustav, the dragon is Christian, and the princess is Sweden. So this is a commemorative piece remembering the Swedes about this conflict. So Sweden and Denmark, they are, I mean, culturally speaking, historically speaking, they are conflictuous. Of course, nowadays, most of the Scandinavian countries are very friendly to each other, politically speaking. But back then, there was a lot of bad blood, and this remains in the culture. So the Swedes, they have this rivalry against the Danes. Even the city hall, remember the city hall that we looked at? Is 3 meters taller, the tower, than in the one in Copenhagen. Has anybody been to Copenhagen?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you were there. Okay. So the city hall here is 3 meters taller. They made sure, out of spite, you know. But that's it about the old town. Come again. We're gonna cross the street and take the bike lane at the other side. apartments cost around 15 to 100,000 euros per square meter. So some apartments there are like 13 million euros for 100 square meters. That's 1 square meter, 10 square feet. So they are these are big apartments for European standards, but the price makes them tiny. But this is where the old money lives. So these people, they were these owners of the mines back in the 1200s, in the 1300s, and then they kept on making more fortune over the centuries. In the empire period, they made a fortune out of the trading. So these families are old money. There are
saltwater?
This is also the Baltic Sea. The peninsula here is surrounded by the Baltic Sea. So also that's where all of those businessmen live. So the owner of Spotify, of H&M, IKEA, Volvo, Scania, Electrolux, Tetra Pak, many others. So Sweden was a very strong economy. It is a very strong economy. We have a lot of intellectual property here, many brands. I know that the headquarters of IKEA nowadays is in the Netherlands, but the owners are still Swedish. So that's why it's so expensive, because people are very rich and they buy all of these places. It's basically making the prices increase there. And it's very exclusive also. That means that the society that they formed there, it's a tight bubble. They don't let other people get in. So if you want to put a place there, you better know the correct people, you know. It's not for everyone. They're gonna sell to their friends or family. I've tried.
Roller coaster?
Yes, we're gonna go there. So that's where the national park is. So we're gonna bike along the most expensive street here, and then we're gonna reach the national park. we are in an island called Garden. Djur means animal and garden means garden. So Garden used to be the royal hunting grounds. So this whole island is still owned by the royal family, but it is open for the public nowadays. And many of the buildings here, they were built to be museums. It's also known as the Museum Island by many tourists. So starting with the Nordic Museum. So this big beautiful building here is the Nordic Museum. This museum is about pre-Viking history, before the Vikings. So mostly Bronze Age Nordic history. So there's a lot of historical artifacts. It's a niche museum, but I think it's pretty good in that sense. So if you enjoy this kind of museum, it's pretty good. But then we have the most famous one, the Vasa. So the Vasa is a ship built in the 1600s during the Empire period. It was to be the flagship of the fleet against the Polish. So in the Polish wars of the 1630s, back in the early 1600s. So this was a ship that was at the edge of technology, gigantic, over 60 cannons, and the Swedes hired a couple of Dutch engineers to build this ship because the Dutch were the best shipbuilders in that period. So they took some time and a lot of money to build it, and it was built here in Stockholm. Right there in that region there, do you see those buildings there? That's the Royal Navy's island, and it sailed towards the Baltic Sea, and after 15 minutes it sank. It was a complete disaster. The Swedes are very proud of it. So what happened is that the ship was too narrow for its height. There was not enough weight at the bottom. So when it sailed, there was a strong gust of wind coming from the Baltic Sea, and it started to tumble. And because it has 60 cannons, and they wanted to show off all of the cannons that had lions sculpted on them, all of the windows were open. So when it tumbled, the water started to pour in through the windows. So it was a gentle sinking. It didn't crash in anything. It was just like, whoop, and then it sank.
How embarrassing.
Yes, 30 people died, and they recovered all of the 60 cannons and the masts. So the masts that we see on there, they are not the original. The masts were repurposed, were the cannons. But the rest was left there under the water for 300 years. So in the 1950s, they discovered it in the bottom of the Baltic Sea, in perfect state. It was completely intact. So they started to change all of the nails. The nails were rusted, so they changed the nails under the water, and after they finished that, they pulled it out of the water. They docked it there, or parked it, I don't know. They just put it there, and then they built the museum around it. So the museum matches the conditions of the Baltic Sea, or try to match the conditions of the Baltic Sea. So it's dark and slightly cold to keep on preserving the ship. But after they took it out of the Baltic Sea, it's still deteriorating faster. So nowadays you cannot go inside the ship. You can only see it from around it, and there are some mock-ups of how it's the internals of the ship, and you can go in the mock-ups and look around. But the ship is gigantic. It's very impressive, and it's the most visited museum among tourists. So I highly recommend you guys to check it out. It's a very unique museum. It's still a ship. buy 3 liters of wine per week. But nowadays it's just tax. So back in the 19th century, these taxes would be enforced on the distilleries. So there was this specific distiller that decided to open his distillery outside of Stockholm, in one of the islands in the archipelago. So that was outside of the authorities' reach. It was hard for them to get there. And he bought a ferry, and people in Stockholm could take the ferry for free to his distillery, and then they could drink without having to pay for the taxes. And that's how Absolut Vodka was born. So it was reverse smuggling. We smuggled the people to the alcohol, not the alcohol to the people. But nowadays there is the taxes apply on the alcohol itself. So if you want to sell alcohol, you need a license, and then you need to buy it from the government. That's how is the law. But if you just want to buy alcohol without having to go to a restaurant or a pub, you can go to the chain of stores called Systembolaget. That's owned by the government, and that's all taxed. So the tax increases with the alcohol content. In Norway, Finland and Iceland use the same system, and they have it even worse than here. So many Norwegians come to Sweden to drink, Finnish also, and the Swedes either go to Denmark to drink, or they take a ferry. So when you take the ferry,
the liquor stores are owned by the government.
Yes.
It's kind of like Utah.
Yes, it's only one liquor stores, and it's all owned by the government. So only one chain. If you want to buy like a light beer, 3.5% alcohol, then you can buy it in the grocery store. But if you want a real beer, like 5%, or wine, or even strong, you need to go to this store. Let me wait it out. So it can be very annoying to many.
Well, I don't see very many in any of the countries we've been.
So that's another thing. There are not that many stores. If you live in the countryside, it's even worse, because some villages don't even have any. So you have to take a bus to another city. And the opening hours are very annoying, because it is open from 10 to 7. So it's mostly during the work hours. Weekends, it's only open from 10 to 3 on Saturdays. And on Sundays, it's completely closed. So you cannot buy alcohol on Sundays except in pubs and restaurants. And then you pay an extra, because there's also the profit that they want to take. So yes, drinking too many, it's very annoying. There is this typical rule: bring your own booze to the party, but you're only allowed to drink your own booze. So if you bring if you bring alcohol to a party, that's not for sharing, that's for yourself. So if you want to try the other person's wine, not allowed. Very annoying, in my opinion.
Well, do people follow it?
Yes,
They do.
yeah, they get angry if you drink their beer.
So if everybody brings a cooler of beer, you can't share?
Then I think it's more flexible. But if someone doesn't come with alcohol, for example, they are not going to drink.
It's because they're cheap.
They chose, or they do not have the money to pay. For example, students. So student parties here are usually not as hardcore as in other countries. People usually just end up playing board games, cards, talking about the weather. You know, it's a very chill party here. So it's hard to socialize for many immigrants.
Can you resell those?
You cannot.
Oh, okay.
It's illegal to resell, and it's illegal to distill. If you bring alcohol from outside, there is a limit to how much you can bring without it being considered for sale. So you can bring at most 80 liters of wine, for example. That's how the people throw weddings here. They go with their car to another country, they buy their alcohol in Germany, for example, and then they come back and they don't need to pay the taxes, but it is at most 80 liters of wine. It's according to how strong the alcohol is. So beer.
That's the museum right there, buddy.
Yeah, so right there, this yellow buildings there, or the red building, sorry. That's the alcohol museum. And then you can taste the different types of Absolut vodka. and they also show you the collector's item, that is the bottle itself. The bottle design is a collector's item, so they have all of them here. We also see the amusement park Gröna Lund. Gröna Lund is a big one. Sam Smith, but I don't know who he is. I've never heard Sam Smith in my life. That attests to my age. You know my age from what I like to listen to. But there is a lot of different types of artists there. But okay, now we're gonna go into nature. So nature is a big part of the culture here in Sweden. There is a law that allows you to enjoy nature as much as you want. So even in private property you can camp. There are minor rules, but it is basically nature is free for everyone. As long as you don't cut down trees, you close off the gates after you open them. Very minor rules. You don't start fires in dried grass that might spread the fire, and enjoy nature with care. So you shouldn't litter, you shouldn't and if you are camping in a private property, you need to warn the owner after some days of camping. So there is this flexible rule about the camping. But let's enjoy a little bit of the nature.
Shit, man. I think I lost.
train went off.
Yeah.
Can we stop?
Okay.
You okay?
Yeah, my chain went off. how do you... I don't know how to fix. Sorry about that.
This is rare.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know how to fix
It's
gear bike, but it's common in the Philippines. Yeah, it's my first time.
We're gonna slow down for them to get to us.
Pausing.
Maybe she's having trouble swapping the gear. I feel that she's on the heavy gear.
Yeah, my gears keep flipping back and forth.
When you do like a slightly movement backwards, it does.
I know. Then I used to not go backwards at all. So you
Yeah.
a little bit, it changes.
It changes.
I mean, it's fine in general, but it's different.
But the Dutch are used to very flat ground, so
Yeah.
We have not.
there is no shame in stepping off and walking. Okay, you don't need to bike up the hill.
You can have the higher gear.
No, it was as if it was blocking at all, but
You can, if you want, you can walk up the hill. Don't worry. Okay, I'm just trying to get in shape. So I'm I'm going uphill because I want to exercise.
Resuming.
I'm so used to it that I forget that I should wait for everyone.
Oh, it's all right.
They made food here. Nowadays it's a community garden, so it's for non-profit. Everything that they make here is locally produced and reinvested. So explore a little bit, and if you get bored you can just come back to me, but we're gonna stay here for at most 20 minutes, okay? So you can check it out, and if you think I'm done with it, join me here, and then so you go up here and to the left, and then you continue. The toilets are gonna be left, right, left, and then
Right.
at the back of the greenhouse. So
Okay.
there will be signs, so you can follow the signs.
Okay.
We're gonna look back.
Okay.
It's 20 degrees Celsius, 23 degrees Celsius on
Oh,
summer.
that's nice.
It is very nice. Like right
Uh-huh.
now, for example, it's the warmest it goes. 20 degrees.
This is warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
In
sun
the
it
sun
is.
it is. It's warm. But
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't get
not
hot.
Yeah.
It doesn't get hot. But the cold gets very, very low.
Like you mentioned, like
Minus 20
Minus.
degrees, that's the low average. The
in-
minimum is like minus 30 in Stockholm.
That's how we are in Minnesota.
Like how long does it stay that way? Because we have it temperatures that cold, but it's not
So
all winter.
it's
you know.
warming.
Well, it's
Yeah.
totally warming for us.
It's
too.
warm.
Gross, yeah.
So, but from November gets to freezing temperatures
Yeah.
up until early March.
Yeah, same.
And then March and April is second winter. So it's like not
the worst.
exactly below
Yeah.
below zero. It can go below freezing, but then at the same point it stays around above zero. So it's the winter for other countries.
Yeah.
But
it's
so-
what we like least about it.
So spring here is not nice.
Ah,
Spring
same.
is nice when it's like end of the spring and then it's warming up.
okay.
But it's beginning of summer that's the best season. So it's around end of May, early June. That's the best season in Sweden.
You can see why they immigrated to Minnesota because it's very
So
similar.
similar. Yeah. Even the weather,
even the
trees,
greenery and
the
everything.
water. Yeah.
It's very similar.
I see. That's nice.
Okay, everyone done? We are gonna
Yeah.
go now and we're gonna just head back straight. So it's sightseeing. I hope you guys enjoyed the tour.
Yes.
There is a map on the wall. Maybe some of you have noticed already. Back in our office. With many recommendations. So there are restaurants and pubs and stuff like that you can check out. I can point out to a couple of places that I've been. And there is also a QR code below the map with my picture. So if you find Lukas there and you scan it, you can download all of the recommendations as a PDF file with pictures. There's also a link to the review page, and I would be very thankful if you leave a review to us and mentioning my name, Lukas. Lukas is a very smart guy, very handsome. And then also there's a link to my PayPal if you want to tip but you don't have any cash.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Let's head back. No more uphills.
Okay, that's great.
All down.
I don't.
down a little bit just for them to
Yeah, sure.
pick up the noise.
Automatic one?
Yep.
Kind of wild.
I'm so used to it now.
They just know where to go?
No, there is a mapping system, GPS.
Is it electric?
Yeah. the lake water right there. It's dam. See, there's a dam.
Pausing.
And then this is already the Baltic Sea, the canal is leading to the Baltic Sea.
I see.
So that flows into the ocean.
So when it's raining, they actually lower the dam. They make it lower just to drain a little bit of the water. And the Prime Minister lives in that White House where the black car is from. That's the Prime Minister's house. It's a very short walk towards there. Because this is the Parliament. The white one. You see the one with the clock, with the cars right there? That's so let's head back to the office and then we're done. You can take pictures. Aynı akşam.
Right. Right. No, I know, but if the problem is people that Egentligen prövar jag med det.